1 out of every 4 people have had some kind of sexual abuse. 1 out of every 3 people have had some kind of mental, physical, or emotional abuse. So just in this room, there's 4 of us. There's a fair amount of abuse that took place, right? If I talk about it, if I talk about the things that no one else is willing to talk about, and a third of the audience can relate, I've already built know, like, and trust factor. And when there's a know, like, and trust factor, you're more likely to buy from me, do business with me, or at the very least, hear me out, right? But if you're like, well, look at Bedros. He's rich, he's fit, he's handsome, he's jacked, da-da-da. Okay, and you're like, where your starting point, you're like, I'm none of that, so we have nothing in common. He's obviously a unicorn. No, English is a second language for me. I was molested by 2 older kids in Armenia. I came here and I was beat up by gang members living in Section 8 housing. Like, I didn't understand the culture or the language. 3 elementary schools, 2 junior highs, 2 high schools. I didn't have any friends at all the way throughout high school. Like, I hated the lunch breaks at school because I would be the guy walking around the quad, the school property, because I had no friend group to belong to. And I was like awkward and, chubby and out of shape. Those are the stories I share because it's relatable. No one's going to relate to my fleet of cars that I show, right? Which is why I don't show them much. Or I might go work out on I post a picture in my private gym, and obviously if you look over my shoulder, you'll see the BK on the wall in my gym. But I don't even talk about that gym that I'm working out at is literally empty, and it's just for me and my employees. Like, outside people can't come in. It cost me $3 million to build it out, right? And so if I shared that, people would be like, well, you're out of touch. I can't relate to you. But I share the relatable stuff. And then I go, but let me tell you how that kid who was hurt, who was scared, who was overwhelmed, who was anxious, who was depressed, became this hero in his own life story. And then, oh, by the way, here's the crumbs for you to follow. And that's all we need to do. But it is a scary thing, man, because the first time I wanted to share that stuff, like, my gut was like, if you share this stuff, people will truly feel like you're helping them, like they can relate. I'm like, yeah, but they're also going to judge. They're going to feel like I'm gross. They're going to think that I am broken, I'm damaged, because there's an inner critic inside of all of our heads that's always whispering negativity to us, right? And if we can learn to shut that critic up, then we can lead with vulnerability, our radiance, authenticity. But if the critic won't shut up, then we put on these masks of everything's under control. I've got it all. I can figure things out. No, I can't. When the pandemic hit in 2020, I was freaking the fuck out, bro, because I'm the founder of a franchise, a fitness franchise. We have hundreds of gym locations across the United States, and they were all told to shut down, right, for 2 weeks, which ended up being pretty much 2/3 of a year. I was freaking out, man. We lost 218 franchise locations. So I was talking about that openly, and people were like, dude, it's good to see that, like, a millionaire like you is also experiencing the problems that we're experiencing. Therefore, I also gained a whole bunch of coaching clients. The most amount of coaching clients at $100,000 for a year of coaching that I gained was in 2020, because I was openly talking about, here's the locations that we're losing, here's how much it's costing me, here's what I'm doing about it, I'm scared as fuck. Quite honestly, I'm drinking a little too much every night to cope with things. And people are like, whoa, this guy sounds legit, like he's real. Because I didn't have the answers. And I've learned long ago, about 8, 9, 10 years ago now, that if I can be vulnerable and authentic and speak my truth, more people will be attracted. It's the best marketing you could do, better than any kind of hook or headline or some bullshit scroll stopper. You know what I mean?
So for people practically to do that, how would you do that on like a daily basis? Like, one of the things that I've been doing a lot personally is, like, almost every day on my stories, I'll say something and go through like the 14 almost points in the attractive character framework and talk about something from my past or how I've overcome that, just depending how I'm mood. Like, a lot of time after training, because my like adrenaline's super high, my energy's high, like high frequency, and I'm pumped up. That I find works really well, and I see the amount of engagement I get on that is wild.
Is there stuff like that, would you have shared that 10 years ago?
No, because I was naturally a very introverted, shy, like, little boy, and I talk about the adult develops to protect the child. So, like, I was very shy, very introverted, fear of failure, so then I wanted to become big, strong, successful, get status, all those things to try and, like, protect the younger version of myself. Mm-hmm. And it's probably only something I've realised in the last 6 months that it's been a gift to realise. And I suddenly, it clicked and I was like, holy shit, this is what's happened. Yeah,
there's a great book that talks about that exact topic called The Internal Family System. Like inside of all of us, there's a whole family that lives us. The protector, the inner child, the joker, the whatever. And that protector, who wants to be big and strong and financially well off to protect the inner child who dealt with abuse. But in addition to all that external work you've done, I'm guessing you've done some internal work as well.
100%.
Some healing of trauma.
Worked with therapists and all types. And it's
there you go.
I don't know if you found the same thing. I found it incredibly uncomfortable. It's like for me, trying to meditate is the most difficult thing. I can't sit there and keep my head clear. So like even for just 2 minutes, that's harder for me than squatting 400 pounds.
Yeah. And so you asked me, well, how does someone get there? That's the answer. Is you got to heal through your trauma first. Otherwise, your trauma holds you hostage. It holds you hostage. Like I had to heal through, I told no one in my family until the age of 38 when I had my massive panic attack. And I went to a therapist because, look, I had a massive panic attack at age 38 because I was overwhelmed with building Fit Body Bootcamp. I'm 49 now, so that was 11 years ago. I have this massive panic attack. I think it was so scary, bro. I thought it was a heart attack that I'm having, right? I'm like, holy shit, at 38, I'm dying. Who's going to walk Chloe down the aisle? Who's going to teach Andrew to become a modern day knight? I fucked my life up, right, is what I'm thinking at that moment. And then all of a sudden, like about 3-4 minutes go by and this anxiety feeling, this what felt like a heart attack cleared up. And so next day I go to the doctor. I'm like, man, I think I just escaped from a heart attack. And he's like, what the hell? They do the whole cardio test, the EKG, and he's like, your heart's fine, but sounds like you had a panic attack. I'm like, what? He goes, are you stressed? Are you overwhelmed? I'm like, man, you don't even know. I barely sleep, right? And so he goes, let's put you on Xanax. So they put me on Xanax. And guess what? For the 4 or 5 days that I was on it, I felt not even a glimmer of anxiety. But I also felt no desire to work, no urgency. Like I was just like a bump on a log, just happy-go-lucky. And I remember thinking, if this continues, I'm going to be one broke motherfucker because I had no urgency. I had no agency to work. And so I called the doctor up. I'm like, hey, good news is the Xanax is helping. No feeling of anxiety. Bad news is no desire to work as well. So what other medication do you have for me? He goes, that's all I got. Have you tried talk therapy? I'm like, talk therapy? He goes, yeah, like a good therapist could give you tools to work through your anxiety when you feel it. I'm like, yeah, but a therapist is for broken people. So hear me out here. The kid that's been molested, that's been beat up by gang members when I came to America from Armenia, that's gone through so much trauma, is telling his doctor, therapy is for broken people. I couldn't be more broke, bro. Yet that's one of the big issues that we have is we think we've dealt with our issues in life, and we haven't. So when I went to I found a good therapist. 4 weeks into working with him, he gave me some skill sets to deal with my anxiety and overwhelm, etc. And at the end of the 4 weeks, he asked me, he goes, hey, is there anything else you want to focus on? Like, you've been doing good work learning these tools to deal with your anxiety and to cope with it. I'm like, no, everything's good. Looks like I'm done. Thank you. And he goes, how's your relationship with your parents? I'm like, look, everyone has parent issues. And I come from a communist country. My parents were former communists, so they were pretty heavy-handed. But I had built so much trust with this therapist. His name is Kevin Downing. In those 4 weeks, I go, the beatings my parents did to me paled in comparison to what happened to me as a kid, Kevin, right? He goes, wait a minute, your dad specifically was like physically hard on you, like beat you up, abused you. And that's just how the Armenian culture is. It's not a knock on my dad. I love him to pieces. And he's done a lot of healing and overcoming as well. He just turned 90 years old yesterday, actually. But he goes, something worse than that happened to you? And I started crying, right? Because I'd never talked about being molested. I never talked about being abused by gang members and being yelled at and scared and told to go back to my own country. And so I started crying, and he's like, hey, sit down, let's talk. And before you know it, he fishes out the fact that I've been molested, right? And we spent the next 15 months, every Monday for 15 months on his couch talking about what happened to me as a kid, how it made me feel, where it shows up in my life, the self-sabotaging that I had, because every time I would upper limit, I would see some wins in my life, whether it's in my relationship, in my health, in my money. I was like, oh, subconsciously, I don't deserve this. I'm unlovable. I'm broken. I'm not worthy of this. And so I would self-sabotage, all self-consciously. And so I always knew, like, there's this upper limit that I would hit and I would sabotage, but I didn't know why I would do that. This cat helped me through it. So as I healed, all of a sudden, 15 months later, Joe Polish asked me to speak at his Genius Network event. And I get up on stage, and I'm supposed to speak about leadership. I'm looking around, I'm like, you know what, guys, we're not going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about healing through your trauma. And I just openly started talking about, between the ages of 4 and 6, I was molested by 2 older kids and blah, blah. I just talked about it as though it was just an event took place, like the pandemic. Simply because once you heal through something, it's no longer something that holds you hostage. It's no longer this big mountain on your timeline of life. Instead, it becomes this little speed bump on your timeline of life, and it's just a fact that happened, but it's not something that makes me shameful, broken, unlovable, unworthy. No surprise, after those 15 months, I got even leaner, more rich, my relationships got better. Maybe it was coincidence, but Charlie, I doubt it. I think the healing led to my true, authentic self finally coming out into the light. And then I could speak openly and honestly, like here on this podcast, and you've got a big following, and people are going to hear this, and some people are going to be like, holy hell, I could relate. I do self-sabotage. I do have these feelings of unworthiness. And to have someone successful talking about it and them realizing like they need to heal. You can't just put it away and not think about it and keep yourself so busy that you're escaping from those problems. And that's what we do. By the way, sometimes entrepreneurship could be akin to alcohol, drugs, pornography. If I stay busy long enough making money and, growing companies, I don't have to address the pain and the internal distress. Does that make sense?
100%. I give the analogy of like sometimes I feel with my emotional problems, I just keep digging a hole and just burying them in there, and I'm just like, I'll just fucking cover it with success and just, I'll make more money, I'll get more followers, I'll help more people, and then I'll deal with this shit later on, and I'll be happy when, which I think is a big problem that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. Do you think that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think their businesses are a reflection of their personal lives and where they personally are in their life in terms of the actions or maybe lack of action they sometimes have in the business?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you where I see that the most. As you know, I'm the founder of Fit Body Bootcamp. We have hundreds of locations of our gyms, of our Fit Body Bootcamp gyms across the U.S. and Canada. So let's say we sell a location in, let's say, Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? I'm just using that location as an example. And the person runs it, and they're just barely getting by, and it's not working, and they're, for some reason, it's just not getting successful to the point where they feel like, man, I'm making good money and helping a lot of people. We've had this happen hundreds of times where that owner decides, you know what, I guess maybe owning a gym is not for me, I'm going to sell it. They sell it, someone else buys that exact gym, blows it up, multiple 6 figures, right? And then they end up doing, $150,000, $200,000 a year take home. Nothing changed. The owner changed. It's rarely the business, it's usually the operator. Because my friend Nick Long says it. He says, it's not just the business plan, but the businessman. And so if you got a sound business plan, and Fit Body Bootcamp is a very sound business plan, and assuming we assign them a good territory and everything, well, if the businessman can't run the business plan, then the business is going to fail. And then you find someone who buys it, and they run the business plan because they're a healthy businessman or woman, right? All of a sudden, why did that Fit Body Bootcamp work? It didn't move. New people didn't move into the community. It was not like all of a sudden people found more money. The plan works when the person who's executing the plan is working the plan. And that's all a byproduct of healing. So your business is an absolute direct reflection of who you are internally, just like your body is a direct reflection. I lost 22 pounds after working with Kevin, my therapist. So I carried this additional 22 pounds of fat. I would always look good in a shirt, but I would never feel confident to take my shirt off because I'm like, they're going to see where the 22 pounds are. And it's not like I was actively trying to keep it on. It's just I fell in love with myself once I healed. And when you fall in love with yourself, you're like, hey, I don't need this additional weight. Let me eat clean. And as I used to get closer to my goal and then sabotage it, just like I would do with my financial goals, relational goals. Then I was like, fuck it, man. Now, like every night I work out, I take a picture of my gym with my abs popping out, veins popping out. And that's what I love because I've fallen in love with myself. I'm no longer sabotaging, but it takes a high level of healing. Your body and your business and your relationships, everything really is a reflection of what's happening here in your head.
It's funny you say that because I think the most important thing that a lot of people lack confidence. And I think the easiest way for you to get confidence is in the physical vessel you have for life. And you wake up in the morning, you look at yourself like, yeah, I'm happy with how I look, is a huge head start. And to be really blunt, I'm completely abysmally shocked, like, by the United States. I went to Universal Studios 2 days ago, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, people like 300 to 500 pounds. Like, you don't get that in Europe. You don't get that in Dubai, where I'm from. And like, food hasn't really changed here. It's just people's habits. And I don't understand how people can let themselves go to that long period of time. It's themselves telling themselves it's a lie that it's okay. And I think that an important thing people need to understand is that, like, they're not just letting themselves down, but also their future family down, because the amount of lack of opportunities they're going to get from that is wild. Because I wouldn't employ someone who's 300 to 500 pounds straight away. Because I'm like, you clearly can't, like, look after yourself. So how am I going to trust you with anything in my business?
Right. My dad, we were just talking about my dad. He's very politically incorrect because he's old school, and that's what I love about him. He, in his Armenian accent, he says, son, there's something wrong with fat people. I go, what do you mean, Dad? He goes, fat people are lazy. If they cannot fix their weight, they cannot fix your business. They cannot fix their relationship. I'm like, fuck, Dad, you're right. You're right. Like, the thing that matters most, the vessel that you live in, your arteries are getting clogged. Your body is diabetic now, right? You have some kind of diabetes. You're hypertensive. Like, your body's doing everything it can to stay alive. And you've got gout on your legs. Like, you feel consciousness even. Like, you feel shame and guilt from being so fat. How can you even love a spouse or your children? Your capacity to love anyone else in your life, your kids, your spouse, your friends, are capped by your capacity that you love yourself. Well, if you're feeling shame and you're feeling gross and you're like, man, I'm not the person I want to be, you're not going to be able to love your kids and your family the way you want. And so my dad is 100% right, man. But look at what America has gotten good at. We've become inclusive of everything. We don't body shame, and no one says we should body shame. But why the fuck is Lululemon putting a 250-pound woman in fucking leggings on their posters and on their website? That's not the customer. Maybe like one out of every 100, that's the customer. That's not the customer. We just gotten to a place where this body acceptance thing has become okay. What we're really saying is it's okay to poison yourself and kill yourself. Like, you would never, if you saw someone with a gun to their head on the side of the street, wouldn't Charlie run up to them and go, stop it, don't do that, you're going to kill yourself. Let's talk about this. If you saw a fat person sitting in their car eating a taco, which is what you'll see in every parking lot across the United States because we're fucking fat here. Well, I'm not. They are. If you want to, like, knock down their window, like, stop it, don't eat that taco. Oh, my God. Like, you're killing yourself. They'd call the cops, and then you'd be on the news for body shaming and, like, send you back to Dubai and fucking the UK or where the fuck you came from. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you get banned from...
Yeah, bro. It's crazy. Like, you can save someone from killing themselves with a gun, but you can't save someone or try and save someone from killing themselves with food and obesity. And by the way they treat their body is they're also, again, isn't that homicide or murder? The way you're treating your kids and feeding your kids. And
for me, that's the most upsetting thing.
Think about that.
Because the children don't need fucking better. And you see fat parents, you always see fat children.
Yeah.
And that's almost condemning children to a lifetime of obesity, being out of shape, unhappiness, poor health. And that's a choice.
Yeah.
Because no one's forcing that upon them.
No. But if that parent left that kid locked in the car for a few hours and someone called, they would call Child Protective Services and take that child away from the parent. But that fat parent has a fat child and they're feeding him McDonald's chicken nuggets and cheeseburgers and fully caffeinated and sugared soda, and then putting them in front of the television or iPad for entertainment instead of actually parenting them. No abuse whatsoever. I want to call Child Protective Services for that because I run the Squire program. The Squire program is a father and son experience that we run. And hey, man, maybe it's just coincidence, but we've run 6 or 7 classes now. 40 dads and their sons who are teenagers come to this thing. If the son looks like a pumpkin, it's because I look at the dad, he looks like a pumpkin. If the son is shaped like a pear, it's because the dad is shaped like a pear. And if the son looks like a lean savage, I look at the dad, he's a lean savage. Oh my God, look at that, right? Like, this child abuse right in front of my eyes, but we can't do anything about it. What the fuck?
Do you think as an entrepreneur you need to be selfish?
Yes. You have to be selfish if you're an entrepreneur. You have to be selfish with your time, selfish with your energy, selfish with the people that you surround yourself with, selfish with the thoughts that occupy your mind. If you're not selfish with those four things, then they will start taking away from you the bandwidth, time, energy, capacity that you need to grow this business. Like, it is this is a heavy lift to grow a business. You name the business, there's already competition. So to go, I have a product that's so unique and different, I'm going to spend money and go into a deficit to launch this business in a competitive space, because every space is competitive now. That takes a lot of work, and you have to be selfish with your time, energy, thoughts that occupy your mind, and the people that you surround yourself with. Otherwise, you will crash and burn.
What would you say to men who are like, I have a family, I'm too busy to focus on building my business and my career? Because you hear a lot of people I see even in the fitness industry who are like, they cop out on building their business because like, oh, I've got a son, I need to look after him.
Yeah. That's actually a very selfish statement. When they say that, like, I'm too busy to because I have family. If I could somehow have a little drone that follows them over a 24-hour period and logs their activity, how much of your time are you in your car scrolling through social media? How much of that time are you having idle conversation at the water cooler at work with people that you could be creating content? How much of your time is spent watching television shows and episode after episode after episode of some bullshit TV show? There is so much inefficiencies in everybody's life, but because, again, it's like being fat. When everybody around you is fat, then you can go, dude, I'm normal. I know you're all normally obese. Like, that's not good. Of course you're normal. Someone like me who's 220 pounds looks lean, like looks skinny compared to all the obese people walking at 350 pounds, right? You guys aren't normal. I know you guys think you are. You're not. You're abnormal. Same thing applies for this. Because there's so much inefficiencies in most people's lives, they have all this time that they squander away. They say, well, I don't have time because I'm a husband and I'm a wife, that I have kids, that I work 2 jobs. No, you do, because on the weekends, you're probably watching football game after baseball game after basketball game. Use that time on the weekends. Yeah, but that's when I need to relax. Shut the fuck up. You don't need a rest. You don't need a rest. Your 9-to-5 job is a rest. Unless you're like doing some physical job, like working in a oil field or fucking construction. Most people, and there's study after study that proves it, when they're working a 9-to-5 job in a cubicle, they found that like a third of the work they do in the 8 hours, they could do in like half the amount of time. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So there's so much inefficiencies. Everyone's got the time and capacity, but it's easier to have the excuse.
I'm smiling and laughing because it just reminded me when I was a real estate agent, I managed a branch and I had a whole team of people working for me. And I could probably finish my entire day's work by 10 a.m.
Right.
So I spent the rest of the day whilst at work building my online fitness business that I then fucked off and like escaped the matrix and did my own thing.
Right.
But the biggest excuse most people also have is they don't have time. And I remember back then I was also competing in bodybuilding shows. I was working full time. I also had a fitness business that was making like $15,000, $20,000 a month, like part time. I had like 150 coaching clients myself, and I had a partner. Like, I made time because it was important to me. And I also understood that I can like suffer now intensely, or I can suffer for a very little amount for a long period of time for the rest of my life, and also have a life of regret of what if.
That's exactly it. And I think most people will, I don't know if they choose to suffer over a long period of time, but at a lower level. That to me is like committing suicide over a very long period of time. I'd rather just bang and get it done with, right? Same with success, man. Same with building a business. Like, you're either going to find the time or you're going to find the excuses, but you're not going to do both. It's just a human condition. And I think most people don't want it bad enough anyway. That's really where it comes from. They don't feel they're worthy. They don't want it bad enough. They're like, hey, like, what if I fail? There's so many, like, again, going back to the critic in their head. They have all these belief systems that override their desire to break out of the matrix, using your words, right? And so if you got belief systems that keep you shackled into a peasant lifestyle, and you have all these friends who are peasants just like you, again, you go, well, this is what normal is. This is average. I don't want to be average.
I like you use the word peasants because sometimes they use the word muggles. I don't know if you like Harry Potter. And I think the important thing, like, I'll give an example. So I live in Dubai. If I go back to the UK, I remember in distinctly this moment, I walked into a Costa coffee shop in Nottingham. I looked around, I was like, what the fuck is this? Because Dubai, everyone's super successful, entrepreneurs, driven. And then you actually see what the rest of the population's like. It's a bit like when it's Universal Studios and everyone's super obese. I'm like, what the fuck? And I suddenly realized it's so easy to win because the standard of everyone else is so low. You just need to turn up and be consistent and do the 7,000 Instagram posts,
That's it.
and you achieve what you want.
Dude, Dana White has a video out there that went viral. I'm sure you saw it,
Yeah.
right? President of UFC. He said, you don't even have to be a savage. You just need a little bit of effort because people have gotten so lazy, so complacent, so unwilling to do the work that if you're just willing to do a little bit of work, you will own everybody and everything. Like today, more than ever, the opportunity to strike is best because everyone has gotten so lazy, so complacent that just a little bit of savage in you, you can own the fucking world.
When you talk about owning the fucking world, which I think is a goal of a lot of people who listen to this podcast, you've been in the online space and in the business space a while. How do you see that's maybe changed over the last 15 years? And how do you think that's going to change in maybe the next 5-6 years coming to 2030?
Yeah, good question. I think the biggest changes that I've seen on the internet since, remember, my first business online was in 1997, totalmuscle.com, a online supplement store.
I was 7 years old.
There you go. So when you were 7 years old, I had totalmuscle.com. There was no Google, no ads, no social media to market on. I was literally going on AOL, America Online, finding people who worked out, sending them an email. And then, because you can search by like if they have bodybuilding or working out or fitness in their bio on AOL, sending them an email, a short email. Hey, if you work out, you take supplements, you should buy from totalmuscle.com. We're cheaper than your local supplement store. Here's the link, send. I would send 250 emails a night. Like, not a broadcast. Individual. And I didn't know how to cut and paste back then. 250 emails written a night. And then I'd close my little Toshiba laptop down and go to sleep and hope that I would wake up to 1 or 2 orders in the morning, right? And back then there was no social media. It was that. So the biggest change I've seen in the last 20 years has been the creation of social media, where websites are less relevant. Social media content that takes you from a generalist to a expert to authority to celebrity. Like there was a time when I was like, hey, Charlie, let's say 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Charlie, do you want to be a celebrity? Yeah. Well, what does it take? Well, you have to go to Good Morning America. You have to be on the late night show with Jay Leno. You have to break through television, which means there's gatekeepers. If you don't have an agent, you don't have a manager, you don't have anything entertaining, sorry, man, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be a celebrity. Today, there are no gatekeepers. The barrier has gotten so low because social media is more relevant than television today. So you can create your own YouTube channel, be entertaining, be educational, and have a massive following in a matter of months. Same with Instagram, TikTok, etc. So social media has been the biggest game changer. And I think the thing that most people are missing out on, in addition to creating awesome content, you have to build yourself into a brand. The Rock built himself into a brand on social media using Instagram. And because of that, what the fuck does he know about tequila, right? He's a fucking wrestler and a somewhat of a good actor. I wouldn't even say great. I love the guy. He follows me, I follow him. But he's probably never going to win the Oscar. And I'm rooting for him. I hope he does. But he's not going to win an Oscar. But what does he know about tequila? He doesn't. But he's got the #1 selling tequila. What does he know about energy drinks? Nothing. But he's got the #1 selling, or at least top 3 energy drink, ZOA. He doesn't know anything about apparel. But Under Armour partnered with him. They have the whole Rock collection, right, with him. Same with Voss Water that he's got, that he partnered with. My point is the production company that he created. He just bought XFL. He's able to do all this because first, people will buy what you do, then they will buy who you are. If you can build yourself into a brand, now, if they trust the brand, like I've turned myself into a brand, and because of that, when you build yourself up into a celebrity, and I have no delusion, I don't think I'm a celebrity, I've manufactured celebrity on social media in a very specific industry. And because of that, people will buy Fuel Hunt gear and wear it. They will go to a Fit Body boot camp and work out. They will use Truly supplements. They will come and do my experiential events, the Project, Squire Program, Masogi, whatever. They'll get coaching from me. And anything I invest in that I talk about, they end up using, the people that believe in me and see me as a brand. So what is going to happen in the future over the next 5 years? I think as people start waking up more and seeing the value of building their own personal brands, and they don't need a marketing company. They don't need an agent or a manager to help them get PR. Like, you are your own PR team. There might be new social media platforms that come out Doesn't matter what the platform is. You have to be able to start positioning yourself as a celebrity, authority, and brand. And when you do, you've now elevated, transcended beyond your competitors. And now buyer's resistance is lower. You're going to deal with less objections. You're going to have more leads, and you're going to sell higher ticket programs. My top coaching program is called the Domination Year Coaching Program. It's $100,000 for a year of coaching with me one-on-one. The reason I have a full roster of coaching clients is simply because I have done a great job not only executing in my businesses and then showing people how I've done it, but also helping my coaching clients execute and then using them as social proof. And then by building my brand, people would rather save up their money and pay me $100,000 for a year of coaching than pay $50,000 to someone else who may or may not get them there. You pay the wrong person money, and they will actually cost you time and money because they sent you down a path that you shouldn't even be going down, right? And so that brand building compounded by a track record of wins, you're deadly. You're a weapon.
And that comes down to storytelling, showing your success and the journey along the way.
Yes, sir.
What would you say has been the biggest point for you that's really like kicked your brand up another level?
I think the biggest thing for me was when I realized I need to go from the Empire Show, and the Empire Show was my podcast that I ran for 4 years, 209 episodes. And it was me,
Craig,
and Craig together, or when Craig wasn't in town, me interviewing someone else, right? So basically, I'm a co-host or I'm the interviewer interviewing a celebrity. And I realized, wait a minute, I don't want to be the Barbara Walters. I want to be the person being interviewed. I want to be the person actually giving the knowledge. So I was like, I think I'm going to rebrand myself and just have the Bedros Keuilian show where I'm looking down the barrel of the camera and it's just me just dropping nuggets, right? Like in every category of life that matters. And to me, it's 3 categories: money, meaning, and mastery of self. Like those are the 3 categories of life that matter the most to me. And so I started looking down the barrel of the camera and just speaking about those 3 things. And all of a sudden, people are like, oh, and authentically, like with my own flavor. And I love when people leave comments like, dude, I would never buy anything from you. You seem very angry at life. Cool, man. If you want to translate my passion as anger, because I do have angry passion, because I'm so fucking fed up with people fucking up their lives that I get worked up on my show, that's cool. Don't buy from me. That's cool. But majority go, this guy loves me, and this is why he's talking to me that way, and he's being open, honest, and authentic. I'm going to do business with him. The fact that I started doing a solo show, which is scary, man, because you don't have time to stop and think, like, while I'm speaking, you can look over your questions, you can formulate a new thing, I can say something, you're like, oh, let me go dive deeper into that. You can take a breath, you can drink water. When you're running a solo episode, it's just fucking you, bro.
Got to rip it, yeah.
Yeah, like you better have your shit dialed in, because if you don't, people are going to be like, scammer, right? Like immediately, hypocrite, like you're a fake, you're a phony. So I also tell people, like, if you don't have a track record of wins and you're not the confident badass that you should be, build your track record, build your companies, get the wins under your belt. Like, be a substantial type of person. Otherwise, do an interview show. Interview shows are best if you don't have the track record yet. But if you do, start doing solo episodes, man, and just speak the truth.
I see at the moment a trend, one of the things that it just triggered me to say is that there's a lot of false prophets or people trying to teach what they've never done.
Sure.
And I never looked to help anyone with their business until I'd done $10 million of online fitness sales myself. At that point, I even was like, oh, am I qualified to do this? But I was like 50x bigger than anyone else.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people now coming out of the woodwork who their businesses have failed, then trying to help trainers to build their business or other people build online businesses.
Yeah.
What would your advice be for people who are looking for someone to help them?
First of all, let me address what you said, because you made a very good point. There's a lot of people out there who don't even know how to use the shovel, yet they're selling a shovel. Like, get good at using a shovel before you sell the shovel. The sad and unfortunate thing is it's become so easy to pay $14 a month and get the blue check mark, buy a whole bunch of fake followers, and then hit that little down arrow that says public figure or whatever, right? Coach or entrepreneur. I guess you could be a failed entrepreneur. Technically, you're still an entrepreneur. And so now looking from the outside in, you're like, man, they got the blue check mark. They got a big following. You can buy engagements. They got engagements. And it says coach or public figure. Maybe I should try their coaching program. So what I would tell someone is what Ronald Reagan always said: trust but verify. In other words, all right, you know what? I trusted Charlie's a good coach. I trusted he's done at least $10 million in sales in his own business before he's going to teach me how. But Charlie, as I fill out this application and while I'm talking to you or your closer's on the phone, can you introduce me to 3 people that Charlie has helped so I can talk to them and just verify? Now, if there's like, his clients don't want to be talked to, or no, sorry, we don't have anyone, or there's no social proof and videos, like you go to go to bedroskeuilian.com/consulting, you're going to see dozens of video testimonials from actual people like doctors and entrepreneurs and all these people that I've helped, coaches, consultants. They're like, B's helped me make millions of dollars. Like, the social proof is there. And then when they want an introduction, Leighton will introduce them. And in the absence of that, that's a big red flag. Like, why is there no one introducing me to people that you've helped? Maybe you're either not good at it, or I'm going to be your first paying client, the first paying sucker, and I don't want to be that guy.
It's funny you say that, because for me, 30 to 40% of our business is referral based, because we're really good at what we do, where we almost don't need to market that much. Obviously we market, but most of the people are recommendations, because if you get really good at helping people make money and then build their business, everyone wants that.
Right.
I think that's the thing you said there about the 3 referrals is what I always say to people. Is like, if you're going to speak to someone, just ask to speak to 3 people who can refer you, because if you can't find them, then they don't exist.
Right. Which is, a lot of the coaches out there are scammers. By the way, 2020 showed us that, because all of a sudden, all these cats were no longer coaching and consulting because they had to go out and get real jobs. You know what I mean? They're rented Lambos and shit. All of a sudden, they had to get rid of. Like, my lifestyle didn't change. I still figured out how to make more money in 2020. It just wasn't with my franchise, because during that time, gyms were not doing well. So my supplement company grew 400%. My coaching business grew 500%. And that's the kind of coach you want. Someone who can not only thrive when it's winning season, but when they can thrive when it's winter. If someone can thrive, not just survive, but thrive when it's winter, show me how.
What's your opinion? Like, me living in Dubai, I see this a lot of guys on social media flexing in terms of like cars, flashy shit, and all this type of stuff on social media.
It's just ego. The moment you can actually check your ego at the door, and ego is good, because it is a good, ego is a good amplifier of the work you want. Because ego also helps us be competitive, right? I'm like looking at you, I'm like, all right, man, look at this guy's biceps. He's got bigger biceps, whatever. By the way, how old are you?
It's 34.
34, I'm 49, so I'm like, you know what? Maybe if I really focus more on my carbs and proteins and really just maybe increase my testosterone just a little bit. I'm not saying that, but at 49, I might need to do those things. Like, I'm in tune with my body. I know what I would need to do. I'm like, I bet I can give Charlie a run for his money after a good 8-9 months of training. But we're competitive. The ego wants to do that, right? Even though I've got over a decade older than you, I'm like, okay, right? We want that. But it's when your ego starts getting so big that it becomes a blinder, where you're like, okay, now my stuff is what's going to determine my self-worth and value. Like, I walked on stage in Salt Lake just last week at the Limitless event, thousands of people on stage at the Maverick Arena, fucking crushed it. Wearing Chucks, jeans, and a hoodie and a ball cap. Crushed it. No blingage, and I have the expensive timepieces, and from the Cartier to the Rolex to the Bertlings, etc. And I have all those things. And I had those things when I only started making a little bit of money, like doing well for myself, but I wanted higher status and I wanted people to recognize me. I needed them to recognize me by going, oh, that's a nice watch. Oh, is that a custom suit you're wearing? Because it's got your logo on the inside of the linings. Oh, look at those. Are those Magnani shoes? Those are fucking nice shoes. Bro, all my custom suits, custom shoes, custom watches, they're all just sitting there now for the last 8 or 10 years because I'm so congruent with the man that I love and respect and admire. I'm like the man that I want to be. I can walk into a room and get everyone's attention just looking like this. But at 49 years old, I've also checked my ego at the door right around early 40s, 41, 42, when I realized I'm either going to start feeding my ego or I can start feeding my profits, like the bottom line, and start building massive wealth. I was at my ranch yesterday. I got a ranch out here in Temecula. I bought it with Dan Fleischman. We have a 26-acre ranch with 11 people running it full-time. $150,000 a month is what it costs us to run this ranch. I forget that I have a fucking ranch, bro, that I've got full-time 11 people running it. It cost me $150,000 to run it because it's just what I have. It's not if I remembered it and my status really mattered to me, I would talk about it more. I would flex my cars more. And so the ego is not your amigo, as I once heard someone say. It's needed, But if you control it, it'll make you competitive. If you let it get big, it'll make you do stupid things and to get status. And I've heard Grant Cardone talk about this. He goes, there's always someone with a bigger jet or more jets. And I thought that was a really cool statement. Because I got a big 26-acre ranch. Right across the street from our ranch, there's 110 acres for sale. I'm like, man, I wonder who's going to buy that. I wonder if I could buy that. And if I could buy that, then I'll have 110 plus 26. I wonder if I can make a tunnel underneath the street. Like, that'd be really cool. Or a fucking bridge if the city doesn't. Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
But what is that for? My ego wants to get the best of me.
But then also, where does it end? Because you even see billionaires compete each other with stupid shit.
Right.
Like, you're playing the infinite game that never ends. And I think that's
Bingo.
also where people are unfulfilled because they're chasing infinity.
Yeah. And chasing infinity is not fulfilling. Chasing mastery of self is the most fulfilling thing we can do. And once you've mastered your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and your path and purpose in life, then you can start doing something in that category that makes you money. And once you've done that, now you've got self-mastery, you've got meaning, and you're making money doing something that's meaningful to you. I imagine fitness has somehow changed your life.
It's been the cornerstone for me because the one moment when my life changed, I always struggled to get in shape. I hired a coach, did what he told me to do, ate the food, did the training, got in great shape, did a photo shoot, and I was like, that was incredibly easy. And I just did the same thing for business. I was like, find someone who's done what I want to do, paying the money to teach me. I learned, did the thing, made loads of money. And just repeated that ever since the last 7-8 years.
There you go. So fitness has changed your life, and you do it, and you teach it. That's your source of income. Like, what a meaningful way to live, right? But it took a level of self-mastery working through your shit first. Otherwise, like, I'm going to go do real estate. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. And you realize all of this, I'm making money, but I'm unfulfilled, and I feel like there's a better path for me. I think that's what people need to focus on, their path, and they can start putting their ego aside.
I feel very much we're going through like a pussification of society where people are getting weaker and weaker and people aren't willing to do hard things. A lot of the like events you run, in particular in terms of men's events, are obviously to try and push them. And you had an unfortunate incident where someone passed away. How do you handle dealing with really difficult things like that happen? Like, to give an example, I had one of our head coach for our mastermind last year, rest in peace, Corby, passed away and drowned, which was a very unusual circumstance for me to deal with. I'd never really had to deal with death much, where someone who was very close to me it was gone. Also had a massive hold on my business suddenly. How do you deal with that in your situation when things like that go completely awry?
You make sure that you have all the right people around you to support you. And that story, I'm glad you brought that up. So imagine this. March 16th, 2020, I announced to all of our Fit Body Bootcamp franchise owners, we got to shut down for 2 weeks. It's the pandemic, right? But I also know, like in the back of my mind, because I come from a former communist country, that this might go on more than 2 weeks. So let's create some online workouts that our clients can do at home if we can't open up our gyms. And so now 2 months, 3 months, 4 months have gone by. We're losing gyms left and right. And so late May, I remember talking to Bryce, the CEO of my franchise, and I'm like, man, this fucking sucks. Not only are we not selling new franchise locations, but we're losing like 24 locations per month. They're shutting down, right? Especially in states like California, New York, Michigan, Pennsylvania, that are very liberal. And I don't want to make this a political thing, but it's just where we lost most of our locations. I share that with you because for a moment in time, I had a little pity party for myself. Like, oh, poor me, we're losing a few dozen locations, which was costing us millions of dollars. And I remember late May telling Bryce, my CEO, like, fuck, man, what else can go wrong, right? I feel like I put that out in the universe. Mid-June, we're running class 5 of the project, the Modern Day Night Project. And it's a 75-hour experience. 36 hours in, a gentleman dies. In my gym. Now, we later find out that he had an enlarged heart his whole life. No one ever knew. His heart was 26% larger than a normal heart. And so he could have been doing a marathon, an Ironman, whatever, and could have passed away. Just so happened that it was during the project, right? He signed up for the project and he passed away. But I feel like I put out into the universe what else can go wrong. And when you ask the universe and you have a pity party for yourself, like, oh, what else can go wrong? The universe goes, oh, how about this? Because all of a sudden, in that moment when he passed away, I'm like, man, I would be willing to lose all my businesses, from the franchise to the supplement company to my coaching. Like, I'd go broke if he can come back to life. You no longer have that pity party. So first of all, there's a big lesson there. But what do you do when life compounds the shitting factor? Because not only am I losing franchise locations, but all of a sudden this guy dies, and it's still the pandemic. And like, so I've got dealing with the pandemic, dealing with lost locations, dealing with the death, which ultimately, by the way, became a wrongful death lawsuit, which ended up lasting 2 years. And then it ended up getting dropped because we did nothing wrong. The autopsy showed he had an enlarged heart coming into the program. But I share that with you because, like, how do you cope with that? Well, you first make sure you have a good circle of influence that is going to be able to do the work when you can't. Like, I have leaders upon leaders upon leaders, like layers of leadership. Bryce is the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp. Jeff is the VP of Truly Supplements. Joey and Drew, who run and own, I own a percentage of Fuel Hunt, but they do the day-to-day leadership, et cetera. Because if I'm down, I can't have all the businesses stop. So I've got great leadership around me, great teams around me who continue to run the machine even though. Number two, I do everything I can to maintain my routines that set me up to win in life. So I continue to work out during those times, continue to work out, continue to get my sleep, continue to do everything I need to do. The only thing I didn't do well was I didn't regulate my drinking. I did drink a little more every night. I would have like 1 or 2 cocktails a night. I went from drinking like 1 or 2 cocktails a month to 1 or 2 cocktails a night during the pandemic. And then after Rick Spoon's death, that became like 2 or 3 cocktails a night to cope with it. Because truth be told, I would have nightmares. Until we got the autopsy report, I had no fucking idea how he died. I thought I was the problem. Like, we did something wrong, right? And so you can imagine the weight of that. You're running a program with the intention of helping men, and then you're like, oh my God, did I just kill someone? Right? And so until we got that autopsy report, sleeping was very difficult, man. But again, I had a good circle of people around me who continued to do the work. I maintained all my habits and behaviors that kept me on a winning streak, with the exception once I realized, okay, and the drinking kind of creeps up on you. It's 1 and then 2 and then 3 a night. And before you know it, you're like, I'm waking up hungover. I think I'm over drinking, right? And so then you start working on that. And then the third and final thing is to realize that life comes to us in seasons. There's winning seasons and losing seasons. And I was like, you know what, dude? You talk about this all the time. Now you are like in the fucking depths of a losing season. But like all seasons, this too shall pass, and a new season is around the corner. We're not guaranteed when that new season is coming, but we can help it come along sooner by putting ourselves in a position of doing things. Like if you're meditating and working out and eating right, continue to meditate, work out, and eat right. For most people, when they hit a losing season, they stop doing all the things that puts them in a good place. Like, keep doing the work, and the winning season is around the corner. And when you're experiencing a winning season, you have to do everything you can to prolong that, but knowing that there is a losing season around the corner. That's just a human condition.
I think about that a lot in terms of seasons of like sowing and reaping in life. And I noticed that even in terms of like economic trends are certain. For example, 2021 was like the easiest year to make money because they were just printing money and anything worked. Like, right. It was like easy. And then 2022 personally had a very challenging year because I moved to Dubai. I ended a 14-year relationship, ended up getting divorced, and I had an awkward 3 days where I had a Tuesday I had a conversation where I ended up leaving my partner. The day afterwards, I ended up having to give away all my personal possessions. And then the day after that, I was sitting in the Hilton Hotel, I can remember like yesterday, about to speak on a big podcast, and my Instagram account gets disabled. At the time, it was like 70% of my income. And I was like, my personal life fucked, my business life fucked. I was like, fun. But I look back on that a lot of the time now in terms of a positive experience that happened to me, because that was very mentally challenging, but then it also made me a better individual in terms of the ability of what I could tolerate and handle. And right. I think people need to build more resilience into themselves to handle shit, because shit's going to happen to us whether we want it or not. You don't have a choice.
Yeah. And look at that. So if you had those same things happen again now, it'd probably be a lot easier for you to cope with it.
I'll give you an example. So I was going, you said like, don't be careful what you wish for. I went to the Maldives like 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm still a bit tanned. And I remember that the day before I was like, do you know what? I fucking really got my shit together now. Like, I feel like in my head, I'm finally like got rid of all like imposter syndrome, all this shit. Like, I'm good. 12:30 a.m. on the way to the airport to go to the Maldives, like switch off 4 days. Normally I don't look at my phone at all. Instagram account gets disabled again. I'm like, for fuck's sake. I was like, the one time where I want to try and like de-stress, I was like, cortisol's like through here, like right. 1 a.m. And then spent like 3 days fucking around trying to fix it. And I managed to pay someone to get it back, because it's two things solve problems in life: is money and people, right?
Yep.
But it's just an example in terms of when you think you've got your shit locked down, you can always get the rug pulled from under you, which is always a reminder for me in terms of like, it's just ironic how things work, and always why you need to always protect the downside, I think.
That's exactly it. But when you constantly are putting yourself through stressful things that are hard and create adversity and challenges and opportunities to problem solve, and then life throws you adversity and problems, it's easier to problem solve and deal with those adversities because you've created a pattern of dealing with hardship. I think most people do the opposite. They go, I'm going to do the most comfortable things possible. I'm going to avoid doing hard things. And then inevitably, life does give us the Instagram accounts that get shut down and people that want to divorce us and economic downturns, and mom and dad are going to die someday. These things happen. And when they do, people are like, oh my God, worst year of my life. Well, did you do anything to build any kind of resilience? No. So really something that registers as a 3 on the stress meter for you and me might register as a 10 for that person because they have no emotional resilience. They're not anti-fragile, which, by the way, another great book to read, Anti-Fragile. I forget the author's name. But resilience, mental and emotional resilience, is massively important for an entrepreneur or anyone who wants to be successful in any venture, because the hardship will come. So if you can build hardship into your life, and it could be as simple as every day you're going to work out hard and do an ice bath and do some kind of meditation, and on the weekends maybe you're going to do these long hikes, but do things that are difficult, so when life gives you a difficult time, you're like, oh, this is familiar. I can push through this, instead of freaking out and like your hair's on fire.
I'm going to say something very, very strange, that sometimes I quite like it when like the business is on fire, because it gives me something to fix, and I get the adrenaline of like, cool, get to show how good I am and I can try and fix this thing, and like, everyone watch this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever feel like that sometimes.
I do, and I think most entrepreneurs are naturally problem solvers anyway. And so when things are going well, you're almost like, I could use a problem right now, which also leads to, if they don't have personal discipline, they will create a problem in their life. I'd rather my business have a problem and me fix it and go, see how easy that was, like, and impress people, than create a problem in my life because, I'm not used to having peace and tranquility, which is a byproduct of lack of self-mastery, right? Which goes back to upper limiting. When you upper limit, you hit that upper limit, you're like, I'm not comfortable with making all this money, having all this peace, and having all this predictability in my life. I better fuck it up. Versus, all right, things are going well. If something goes wrong in my business, I bet I can put that fire out. Like, I know that if another pandemic happens, bring it on. Because I'm the virus that the pandemic has to worry about. I don't have to worry about the virus. Like, I am the virus. And when you start looking at it that way, it's almost like a fun little role reversal.
I like that perspective. One last thing to finish up on. The biggest issue I see with people, in particular in my audience who want to be entrepreneurs and want to be successful, is they have a lack of ability to execute or just fucking start. What would you say to those individuals?
Well, I would say that if they truly have a great product or service idea and they're not starting, and here's what they're probably saying. They don't have time. They're not quite ready yet. The product's not quite perfect yet. As soon as it's perfect, I'm going to launch it. I want to just remind them that they are very selfish. And when I say it that way, they go, like, what the fuck do you mean I'm selfish? Well, there's probably someone crying themselves to sleep every night, and I think I talked about this at Craig's event. There's someone crying themselves to sleep every night because they don't have that product that's 50% done. Like, if you put your product out there that's 50, 60, 80% done, and yes, it'll get better over time, but if you put it out there, that person who's crying themselves to sleep will have a solution. So it's the most selfish thing you're doing. You're not helping people out. You're not bringing in extra revenue to help your family out. That is a very selfish thing, because you're worried about what will people think. It's the product's not ready. What if I get judged? What if it's rejected? No one buys it. What if they do buy it? What if they benefit from it and keeps people from getting fatter and diseased and et cetera, right? And so when you start looking at it as failure to launch is not procrastination, but it's actually selfishness at its highest form, then you're like, holy fuck, I better do something about this.
I love that. I think it's a very powerful note to finish on.
Thank you.
Big thank you for your time, Bedros.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
For everyone who enjoyed the podcast, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, and check out the next episode, and make sure you follow Bedros. Big thank you for that, because I know it takes time and value.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was awesome.